Hello world, my name is Andy Silvers and I finally bought the HP Dev 1. Alright, welcome back. It's been a little while since I've uploaded. I bought this laptop about three and a half weeks ago, and I wanted to really put it through its paces before I was willing to do a review of it. It is no longer a new device. In fact, it is technically discontinued. But when it first came out, I did two videos covering it, talking about how great I thought it was. But it is a little weird to do a video talking about the amazingness of a device that you haven't even touched, right? And the reason I was willing to be so confident then is due to the device's cost compared to performance and build quality. So the HP Dev 1 is sort of a one-off special edition partnership device between HP, the laptop manufacturer, and System 76, the also laptop manufacturer who also creates Linux workstations like towers and a server. What makes this device so special is the fact that it is a partnership from a major box brand. HP is a major brand that you can find pretty much anywhere. Walmart, Best Buy, Staples, you can find them pretty much anywhere. Whereas System 76 is a laptop brand and a desktop brand that you cannot find anywhere. You're going to have to look far and wide to find them in stores, and I doubt you will. So what makes this device interesting is its cost compared to its performance. So it was released a few years ago. I covered it at the time when it was brand new. I sort of discovered it on accident. And then I decided to talk about it because at the time it was $1099, call it $1,100, brand new for this laptop. It's a 14-inch laptop with a 1080p non-touch display, and it is based on HP's ZBook Firefly 14 G7 and G8 in terms of the chassis. And for those who don't know, HP's ZBook lineup is the highest end lineup of laptops, and the Z is the highest end for desktops. So that was the maximum design, aesthetic, and sort of physical build quality and business features. And they used that device to create a new device with most of the same body, although there's some changes I'll get to, called the HP Dev 1, short for Developer 1. The idea is that this laptop is designed to be catered to developers, specifically software developers, people who are using the terminal on a constant basis. As such, it came preloaded with Pop! OS, which is a custom version of Linux created by System 76. The thing about Pop! OS is it's free, so if you want to download it for yourself on any Windows machine to try it out, you can do that. With this laptop, though, it came pre-installed, which is one of the advantages of it for Linux users, is that the second you open it and you start setting it up, it has Linux on it. And I have a bit of footage because I actually decided to go through the entire setup process so I could show you, the users at home, what it's like to set up a Pop! OS device, specifically one made in partnership with a major brand. So I'm not going to spend forever on the specs because I've already covered it, but it has an 8-core AMD Ryzen 7 CPU, 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM. It has no dedicated graphics card, but it does have AMD's integrated graphics, and they are pretty good. And by the way, it's a Ryzen 7 Pro series CPU, so the more business-friendly version of the Ryzen 7 processor. It has two USB-A ports, two Type-C ports, headphone jack, full-size HDMI output, micro lock slot, and the barrel pin power connector, which I really appreciate. Some other channels, I won't name any names, seem to not like it when portable laptops like this they seem to not like it if it has a barrel jack because they like to charge everything with USB-C. And I get it. USB-C is amazing. It can do anything from charge to data to whatever you want to power. But I love that this device, like the ZBook Firefly 14 G7, has the barrel pin port because it frees up your USB-C ports for data and other uses. However, if you want to just charge it with USB-C, you can. I believe it comes with a 65-watt portable charger in the box. The last thing I want to note is that people have argued with me in the comments. Yes, technically this chassis was used a few years ago for the HP EliteBook 14 laptop, but the reason I liken it more to the ZBook is due to the color. This sort of dark gray, kind of like almost like Apple's space gray color, it's pretty much exclusive to the ZBooks. I'm not aware of another HP laptop that natively comes with this exact dark gray finish, except for the ZBook Firefly series. So that's why I say that. So there's a lot to say about this laptop. I'm going to put some performance numbers on the screen so you can see those, but this laptop isn't really about pure raw performance. It's about the experience of using a laptop that's this cost. Now, here's the thing. When I did my follow-up video on it, the price had dropped considerably to $880. So remember, it starts at $1,100 and then it drops to $880. And I did a video praising it, saying, wow, that even if the laptop has some drawbacks, and it does, that is a great price for this. So how much did I pay? Well, the laptop was discontinued at the time that I bought it, and there is no HP Dev 2, so it really is a one-off. It really is kind of a unique device in its own little world. And so when I bought it, it was exactly $399 with free shipping, so call it $400. So I got it refurbished with a 1-year warranty, so it's not just, I got it off my Uncle Bill or something. This is still a like-new product in terms of the way that the purchase was handled, and I have a 1-year warranty. So it is basically like new in terms of practical use. But at $400, it's a steal. Now, let's get to the elephant in the room. That is not Pop! OS. So what happened was I started with Pop! OS because that's what comes out of the box, which is Linux. And since I'm not actually a software developer, I ultimately decided to remove Pop! OS. It just... I liked it. I liked some of the customization, but it just wasn't working for me. I wanted something familiar, something that I felt that I could control pretty easily. So I decided to switch back to Windows 11, so that's what's on here now. The Windows 11 experience has been great. The battery life in particular has been great, especially with the screen brightness turned down. I typically crank it up, so I get about 6 hours or so, but if you have it at like 50% brightness, you're going to easily be able to get like 8 to 10 hours or so of battery, assuming you're not trying to play games on it, which it's not really designed for in the first place. Furthermore, the laptop has a 1TB Gen 3 SSD out of the box. And what's interesting is this laptop is pretty easy to upgrade. In fact, there are some key differences between this and the ZBook Firefly G7 that are worth noting, like upgradability. The ZBook, I believe you can update the RAM and the storage, although the RAM is debatable depending on the configuration, but that's not relevant here. But here's the thing, the Dev 1 allows you to update or upgrade the Wi-Fi card. So it has, I believe, Wi-Fi 6, because it's an older device, but it's more than fast enough in my testing. But the point is that you can upgrade that, whereas in the equivalently sort of designed ZBook, you could not. The ZBook had a few advantages, like it came with an optional smart card reader, which would be over here on this side. This device does not have a smart card reader. And worse off, the ZBook this is based on actually had a fingerprint reader right about there underneath the arrow keys. That's not here at all, which is really irritating. Linux supports fingerprint readers, and of course Windows does, so it's unfortunate that it's not there. Now, I'm not a developer. I did not buy this for development of any kind. I don't do code. I'm not a kernel compiler, whatever. So if you want information on that, you'll have to just check out another video. My video is a bit different. I am an author, YouTuber, and filmmaker, which reminds me, as this channel is not currently monetized, I really need you to support me directly by, of course, subscribing, commenting, leaving feedback, and checking out my books. All 3 of them are available right now in the video description. Literally, they're from ages like 3 to 6 to ages 16 and up. I have one that's a bit like the Marvel movies, that about a vampire who has to save the world. There's a lot of great stuff down there, and I'm working on a brand new adult novel right now, and I'm using this laptop to do it. So check those out in the description. So it's very similar to the ZBook because it's basically is the ZBook. From the what you might call gunmetal finish to the little nubbin right here that you can use the little trackpad cursor to move the cursor around, essentially. To the buttons that are on the trackpad, it's all there. It's all very much ZBook-esque. It has a privacy shutter over the webcam. The webcam is not particularly good, but that's not why you're buying it, and that's not why I'm praising it. The reason I'm praising it is because of the build quality. This thing is built like a tank. It is all metal, no plastic anywhere. It's really easy to get inside, just a few screws, and it's easy to upgrade because everything, including the battery, is pretty easy to remove and replace. I assume you can go up to about 2 terabytes of max storage with this thing if you were so inclined, and about 64 gigabytes of RAM if you were so inclined. I know that's possible because another YouTuber did it, so it definitely works. Like I say, I removed Pop! OS from mine because I just prefer Windows 11. It just works for me and works for my workflow. Pop! OS comes with something called LibreOffice, I believe, which is their equivalent versions of Word and PowerPoint and Excel. But I've already been using Word to do my novels and a few other things, and I just like the consistency and the control that I have. So one day, if I ever want to put Pop! OS back on, I probably can. But for now, I am not. So despite not being an expert in Pop! OS or compiling code, what I can say is that one advantage of buying this device, particularly new, is that in the actual settings, under the Linux settings, you can actually put in a work order for a replacement or some sort of malfunction through Linux itself. A lot of Linux users are obviously familiar with the idea of firmware updates and a few other kinds of updates where it's difficult to do it through Linux itself. You almost have to create like a virtual Windows 11 interface in order to actually put in certain kinds of work orders. My understanding is that the Pop! OS out-of-the-box experience here did not have that issue because Pop! OS was integrated from the very beginning. It was not an afterthought. So that's nice. However, I can really only talk about the Windows experience, so that's what I'm going to do. I've already said the battery life is quite good, but I want to talk about a few other things. The keyboard is good. It's a lot better than the Lenovo that I have back there, but it's not quite as good as my old ZBook was. I guess that makes sense. The keyboard is smaller, or the keys don't travel as far because the device is overall quite a bit thinner. It has a very angular shape to it. A lot of HP devices these days have a much rounder finish from the ZBooks to the Spectres. They're all getting this rounded finish. I understand why, because it's physically more comfortable to hold on to. It's not as sharp, but I'll be honest, I like the angular design. I don't care if I slice my finger open. I kind of like it. So, but that's subjective. And then as for the keyboard, it's really nice, like I say, but it's a little too quiet for me. It's part of HP's quiet keyboard technology. It has backlighting, but I would really prefer if it was a little more clacky. I understand that disturbs people, but I really like the tactile feel that has. And my understanding from personal experience and other reviews is that most laptop manufacturers just don't incorporate that, except apparently Lenovo does on occasion with their thicker gaming computers, as well as the Lenovo ThinkPad series. The port selection on this thing is quite nice. I really wish it had a full-size SD card slot, as I am a YouTuber and videographer and filmmaker, and I could definitely use it. But, to be fair, I also have a desktop computer that I can use for editing videos, and photos, for that matter. Although I do use this to edit photos, actually, due to convenience. I just have to use an adapter. Okay, now we have to get to the elephant in the room, the screen. The screen on this thing has been sort of an element of controversy because HP decided to create only one version of the device, meaning that you can't customize it even when it was new. You just had to buy the Dev 1. That was it. The Dev 1. There was no alternative version or whatever, what have you, whereas there was with the ZBook equivalent. And as such, HP have made some interesting decisions with regard to the display. So the display is not great. Even the Lenovo back there is better in almost every way. It is a 1920 by 1080, so 16 by 9 display, with a reported peak brightness of 1000 nits, which sounds good, but it's not what you think. And it has a 60 hertz refresh rate, so not for gaming. But here's the thing. The display is better than people have said and worse than people have said. So the first thing I want to know is that other reviewers have rightfully pointed out that the display has an issue with regard to glossiness. It is a fairly glossy display, like really shiny. But cranking up the brightness does help to minimize that. The other thing people have pointed out is the rainbow effect. So, due to the technology in the display, if a bright light is shining right at the display, it can appear as this really drastic sort of hexagonal rainbow pattern. And it can be really distracting. In a dark room, you never see it. In a office or I took it to a cafe, you will see it. However, what I think is unfair that no other reviewer has ever pointed out is that that really isn't a huge problem unless the background is dark. So here's the thing. In Pop! OS, it probably will be. The Linux kernel, where you compile your code, is in quote-unquote dark mode. It's not literally dark mode, but it kind of is, by default. And then even the standard Pop! OS desktop wallpapers that are included are almost universally dark. The UI is dark. The taskbar, if you will, is dark. Everything's dark. So even if you crank the brightness to the maximum, which I like to do, you're still going to end up seeing that rainbow pattern. But I just never saw that much of it because I changed to Windows 11 where everything is in a bright mode, quote unquote. And I use Word, I use Excel, PowerPoint, and even YouTube in a more bright configuration, and Amazon. So I'm not seeing as much of that rainbow pattern, but it is there. And let's talk about it. The reason it's there is because what HP have done is an interesting compromise. Going back to the ZBook Firefly, again, the ZBook Firefly comes with a bunch of different screen options. And one of those is a 1000-nit privacy screen option, where the idea is that HP puts a custom layer over top the LCD or LED panel or whatever it is. And there's a button on the keyboard, a dedicated button, which I believe would be F2, but here it doesn't have it. But it allows you to turn on and off the privacy display, meaning that if you go like this, off axis, the screen will become very dark. In fact, really dark to the point where it's almost impossible to see anything. And that's pretty good from a privacy display standpoint. Now, the way that HP does this, I don't know exactly how, but suffice it to say, I believe it's a photochemical process, or at least some sort of chemical process in the layer of that's over top the regular display panel. And what that does is it basically just gives you that privacy effect by blocking light. It literally just blocks light as much as it can from certain angles. So what that does is it blocks the light that's being output by the backlight altogether. So to compensate, HP cranked the backlight to what they say is 1000 nits. Now, even HP themselves will admit in documentation that the glossy display and the display settings and stuff really give you more like 800 nits in use, and that sounds pretty darn good. One of the reasons I bought it. But that's not really the truth either, because the device doesn't actually really give you 800 perceptively. Because the display technology, remember it has that privacy display, right? But it's not being used. So on the ZBook, you can hit on and off. On here, there is no on and off. So the privacy display is permanently off, which you might think, well, that's fine, it's off. But it's not off, because the display still has that privacy layer in it, even if it's not being activated. So the viewing angles on this device are horrendous. And that is so much more important to me than the rainbow effect that occasionally appears or the glossiness of the display. That's killer. Like, you look at this thing, let's see if I can show you. You look at this thing too off angle, and it becomes extremely dark. It's extremely dark, because that's just how the privacy display has been integrated, even though the privacy display feature cannot be fully utilized from the ZBook that it is inherited from. So that bugs me more than anything, because I don't like to, even when I'm writing a book, I will have to have the device in front of me with the display perfectly angled towards me. I can't have it off axis in any direction, or it will be too dark. And it's really irritating. It's not a deal breaker for the $400 price, and even honestly for the $880 price, it wasn't a deal breaker either. Because if we're being honest, how do you use a laptop? Well, typically you just sit there and stare at the screen at one angle. So, yeah. It's not something where you're going to be able to watch a movie with friends super easily because of the viewing angle issues, but it is worth noting. The viewing angle issues are the biggest single problem with the display, not even really the glossiness. A lot of phones are pretty glossy and you can still see them. It's the viewing angles, in my opinion. Because again, unless you have everything in dark mode, you're really not going to notice that rainbow effect hardly at all. And the glossiness, you may not even notice that much either, unless the screen is depicting something dark, like the Linux wallpapers that come with Pop! OS. So be aware of that. Like I say, it is a 60 hertz display, so gaming is not going to really be a priority. It has a glossy display, but it is not a touchscreen, even though most displays that glossy are going to be touchscreens. That is unfortunate. It would be nice if it was, as Linux supports touch. But overall, it is still a very nice device, and I really do like it overall. I would recommend it if you can get it, particularly with a 1-year warranty. That means if anything goes wrong within the 1 year, you have the opportunity to fix it. My unit has a few small problems, like occasionally when I turn it on and it boots up, it doesn't quite work. It gives me a pop-up warning saying that one of the fans is not working correctly. Now, I can hit enter and it'll just boot anyway. It'll just ignore the fan error. But I usually play it safe and let the device turn itself off and then turn it back on again. And typically that issue will have resolved itself. But don't necessarily think that that will happen to your unit, because that sounds like a hardware issue that isn't necessarily a problem with all Dev 1s, as I've never heard another reviewer mention anything like that. So be aware of that. I put Windows 11 on it and Windows 11 Home. I had no issues. I'm able to do all the software updates, and I'm able to actually put HP Support Assist on here, which I would recommend to anyone with an HP device. Put HP Support Assist on there so that you can keep an eye on warranty and other updates. My parents could use something like this. Teachers could use something like this. Students in college could use something like this. This has a wide range of use cases. It's not just developers. Developers will like it, but there are developers who don't like some of the features. They would prefer a higher resolution display. They would prefer to have a built-in Ethernet port. But I, as a developer, think that the feature set is basically perfect. And as a bit of an HP fanboy, I really like that they repurposed their ZBook design to create something that is both relatively inexpensive and highly usable. Alright, thank you for watching this video. Please like the video and comment. I try to answer questions as soon as possible. And remember to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.